that's good and bad news. That means we're losing a lot of seniors, as we know about. But also, when we had such a good year and we're able to attract not only a bunch of quality, but numbers-wise as well. You know, it'd be a tough situation if we were only able to give 10, 12 scholarships. So this has really worked out well for us, having a year like we've had and then being able to go after a bunch of guys. We're also excited about next year. We know that there's going to be some ramifications for next year because really a lot of these guys that we got were committed to us before any of the Fiesta Bowl or before our season ended. So we're excited to see how it's going to go next year as well.
Talk about that ability to have a lot of players locked in before you even went to the Fiesta Bowl. Obviously, you know, you're going to have to wait till next year to really reap those benefits, but it says a lot about the program to have already everybody locked in for the most part.
Yep, no doubt about that. You know, one of the hard things we've been talking about is we had a decent amount of players come up and visit us during the season when we were playing games, and it was towards the end of the season when their seasons were over, and our success rate there pretty close to 100%. And that can be hard on the coaches because we're so focused on playing the game, but yet we have recruiting going on too. But because the environment on game day here is so spectacular, it's a hard thing for us not to continue to do in the future.
Are there some names on this list that popped up after the Fiesta Bowl? Or when you made it into the Fiesta Bowl?
No, nobody popped up after, but they were, you know, some of those guys committed after, but nobody. The thing that's just really interesting about this list is because when we started the whole thing a year ago, back in spring, you know, we said, hey, if we could get that guy and that guy, we'd be doing really well. Well, we end up getting more than that guy and that guy. We got a bunch of them. And I think our hit rate was probably into the 90s in terms, 90% in terms of the guys we are targeting. You know, a couple guys we decided not to recruit as we got into the recruiting process. But in terms of us, you know, somebody else beating us on a guy was very few. And, you know, that's a credit to our coaches really honing in on the right guy for us. You know, we are all about this fit here. And, hey, if Boise State's not the best place for some young recruit out there and there's a better fit for him, we want that guy to go there because it's not going to help him or us in the long run. So I think our coaches did a great job of finding the right guy for us.
There's a lot of recruiting services out there that rank players, give them a rating, etc. And it seems like for your class, 3 of the guys that rank the highest are the offensive linemen: Bird, Pendergrast, and Uriardi. Talk about loading up on the offensive line with an eye towards the future, even though that's kind of the strength of your team right now.
Well, the one thing I'd like to go back and say is that's one of the frustrating things that I don't like about the recruiting process. I know there's so much interest in it now, and there's so many so-called experts out there, and those experts have much different opinions than we have. And it's very frustrating to listen to some guy that thinks he knows all of the answers for Boise State, and that gets frustrating. And so that's why we don't pay attention to any of that. I think those guys are all good players. I think there's a bunch of players on there that are completely and totally underrated in terms of the so-called experts saying how good they are.
Coach, the freshmen you signed, Coach, any that'll play next year, or you're looking to redshirt them all at this point?
No. I hope some of these guys come in and play. We're going to need some of those guys to come in and help us, and I think that there's that quality of player in there, and there may be more than one. I hope there's a couple, because then I think we have kind of upgraded our recruiting as well. You know, that's one of the things people have asked us so many times as we've gone on through this process is, boy, is recruiting getting a lot better? You're getting a better player. Well, the first thing I'd say is I don't really want to get that much better. I want the same guys we've had. These guys have won a lot of football games around here. Now, maybe if they're an inch taller or a step faster, but, you know, we think there's very much an art in recruiting, and we're trying to find a certain guy that has a certain mental makeup. And that's the thing that nobody can truly determine until you get them here for a couple years.
In the recent past, other than Dennis Ellis, you really haven't had a big girthy guy that you've recruited in on the D-line, but you've got a couple guys here that have some serious size coming in as a freshman. Just talk about those 4 players that you're bringing in on the D-line.
Well, I think, yeah, we have quite a few defensive linemen on the list, and first thing I'd say is I think size is overrated. We've always been undersized here. We're all about speed and strength. Now, if we have speed and strength that go along with that size, then very good. We're making progress there, but you know, defensive linemen are some of the hardest guys for us to find. Not only us, everybody throughout the country, and they are in high demand, and we feel really good about those defensive linemen that are on that list.
Coach, can you talk about the Idaho kids and how the Idaho kids you go after compared to like the guys in California, Washington?
Well, I think this is really a special year for us in state. A couple reasons. One, for us to take 4 guys right now out of Idaho, I think is unusual, and two, that they're all from the Boise area for the most part, and I think it's great. We love that, and I hope that trend continues. I think it says a lot about the coaching that's going on around here. I think as the Boise area continues to grow, the recruiting thing is so much population based that's gonna help us as well.
Of the local kids, Mitch Burrows really got a lot of attention from some other schools, talented young running back. Talk about adding him to your team.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, the thing about a lot of these guys on this list is the first thing I keep thinking about is the type of people they are. And that's what gets me so excited. And I think about that about Mitch and his family is he's just a great kid. And those are the guys that do so well for us. And I said that we've said this many times, talent's overrated, meaning that everybody has talent that we're going to play. And Mitch has a lot of talent, but he's also a great kid to go along with that. And he's one of the many we're excited about.
Kaiserman has a lot of, Kaiserman told us before the season that he didn't have any offers to him yet.
Right.
Felt like he was coming into the season to prove that he deserved a scholarship.
Right.
Tell us what he did to prove that.
He is such a Boise State guy. If that guy doesn't have Boise State stamped on his forehead, I don't know who does, just in terms of that mentality. We don't want him to lose that mentality once he gets here. He needs to prove to the rest of the world that, everybody in America missed on him. That's how our guys operate well here, when they have that kind of underdog mentality and that they're always on a mission to get better and continually prove themselves to everybody. So Matt Kaiserman's going to be an excellent player for us.
On the surface, it's easy to compare Shea and Corey Hall, small town kid, and plays defense, really stands out. Do you see any parallels there?
Yeah, I think both the towns they're from don't have a Taco Bell in town. I always joke with Corey about that. I'm like, hey, I'm coming back as soon as they get McDonald's in town. I do. I think that they're both from very good families. They both kind of dominated their level of football. Good kids, all about Boise State growing up, and I think Shea is. They played him as a running back and a middle linebacker, just because he was the biggest, fastest kid out there, and we're going to play him on the defensive line. And we had him in our camp, and that guy's best years are to come, and we're excited about him.
Coach, you rave about gray shirting players. It looks like Potter's put on 25 pounds since you guys originally signed him a year ago. How big was that for you guys to be able to, let him go for a year?
Yeah.
And get that extra year in with him?
Well, the gray shirting thing is becoming more and more popular, and we're going to gray shirt some guys in this class as well. And it's just a real benefit to them first as an individual, as a player, give them a chance to mature, and in the long run, it helps our program as well. And so not only Potter put on a bunch of weight, but Kyle Efaw and Ben Chandler and these other guys, that it just helps. It helps the process if you can be patient.
How is Chandler progressing from that injury he had?
Oh, he's good. He's full blown. He's in the program, and he's working out very
How
well.
long does it usually take to kind of evaluate that was a really good recruiting class? When do you expect these guys to really start making a difference?
Well, I think you look back when they're done and you go, okay, how many games did this crew win? That's how we've kind of always done it around here. So I think it takes a while for anybody to, to really know.
Jarrell was hurt this year, this last part of the year. How's that affecting what you may do with him, and any concerns there?
Right, and we'll just kind of see. We got time as the summer goes on, but he's playing basketball and he's fully recovered, and another guy that we feel really good about. A lot of these guys we got committed to us early, and so again, getting to those the rankings, they do it off how many guys recruit a guy and who's in on that recruiting. Well, a lot of these guys committed to us early, so it's over and done. Okay, so one school recruited you. We make our own opinions of guys, and we don't really care what anyone else is thinking. But that affects the computer rankings, the experts.
Kellen Moore, phenomenal high school career, Washington State Gatorade Player of the Year. Talk about adding a kid like him to your team.
Yeah, well, again, I think he's right in that Boise State mold. He's a little bit undersized for some of the other people that are out there, but he's, his father's been a high school coach, his coach forever. He's a football junkie. He lives, breathes it, sleeps it. I mean, it's one of the most important things in his life, and we were able to be around him in our camp and know about him, and I think his stats speak for himself. So we're, again, I could go down the list and talk about each kid for about 15 minutes, but there's so much work that has gone into not necessarily getting them to come to Boise State, but really finding out if that's the guy that we think fits our profile, and it's a good crew for us.
Is that the trend you'd like to set, just one quarterback, for a class coming in?
Oh yeah. I think that's such a hard position because the reps are so limited. When you have 5 quarterbacks in your program, that's a little bit tight as it is. So we don't want to. We'd like to not take 2. I think if you do that, maybe you're not sure about one of the guys for whatever reason. We did that with Zabransky and Legadoo was such a wild card at that time that we thought, well, if he doesn't work out, he can probably play another position, but if he does, he'll probably be something special. So that's why we ended up in that situation.
Coach, who recruited the Sacramento area for you? Because you got 4 guys out of that
Yeah.
Sacramento stock there. Who was
Well, I will say this, that was Coach Kugler's area. But the thing that we were talking about, the staff has just done such a phenomenal job. As soon as one guy was on the radar that we were going to recruit him, 3 other guys were involved. And there was so much cross-recruiting going on. I mean, Jeff Trout was down there a ton, and a couple of the other guys with Scott Huff and all those guys. And so, I know people are always looking at those lists. Well, who recruited this guy? Well, I'll tell you, every guy on that list was recruited by about 4 guys on our staff. And but Northern California should be. We'd like that to make that a good area for us, just by proximity.
Especially right now, I know Sacramento is a hotbed this season for a lot of Pac-10 schools coming out of Sacramento. They're getting to Notre Dame and the USC. How big was it for you guys to get in there, get in the mix, and grab those out of your home area?
Well, we've always had a good pipeline from Northern California with many guys. I mean, Ryan Dinwiddie and Bobby Hammer and all those guys. There's just been a lot of guys out of that area that we got to keep that going.
Pete, were there any positions or areas that you really targeted for this class, and did you hit what you wanted there?
Well, yeah, we did, and you kind of see what we were targeting, where the numbers are a little bit, where there's more numbers. I mean, those are some of the areas we had to fill the lines. But sometimes we even took more, just feeling like we didn't want to pass up a guy of that caliber, and we'll make it up down the road next year, maybe not recruiting another player in that position. So.
What were the 1 or 2 things you really felt like you needed now?
Well, we wanted to get some running backs, and certainly the lines as well. But you can go down the list. I mean, yeah, we had to get some receivers. We had to get a linebacker. I mean, there's nothing. But I think in general, probably the lines, just by the numbers of the guys.
Coach, looking at this class, there's 29 names and there's only 1 that's a junior college transfer.
Right.
That's obviously a sign of a really healthy program. Talk about that aspect and the fact that you're so well into your program that you don't need to get a lot of JC guys.
Yeah, we've had good luck with some junior college guys around here, but I think in an ideal world, you just like to recruit the freshmen to have them for 5 years. And then when you do end up taking a junior college guy, especially with the academic requirements are making it even tougher and tougher to take a junior college player here. So if we take one, he's really going to be an unusual guy. 1, we have a need. 2, he's going to be a good student. And 3, he's going to be, a really, really good person. And Garcia Day for us. When he came up here, to tell you the truth, too, before he even came up here, I was kind of skeptical whether we were going to move on another junior college guy. And when he came up here on his visit, it was very apparent that we needed to take him. He's a great kid.
Did you compare your JC wide receivers this year, which you've done a lot of lately? Is that something you're trying to get away from, or it just wasn't the right guy out there?
Well, we're trying to. You just like to get away for just the fact that you'd like to train a guy for a year or 2 and then let him play. And when you get a JC guy, he needs to play right away, and so you're never going to be as strong as you'd like to be. It's just Gerard Rabb's a perfect example. I mean, that guy's about as good as the JC guys we've had around here. He played from the very start, but that first year is always such a growing period for those guys. And so if we have him for 2 years, he's getting ready to leave, and I always think, man, if we had him 1 more year. He'd really be good on the hook and ladder.
Dennis Ellis is a good example. He really shined as a senior, but didn't play a lot as a junior.
He's the perfect example. I mean, he didn't hardly get on the field at all, just trying to get all the other things figured out, not football-wise, but just how we do things around here. And it takes a while to get that down.
Coach, compare your roles as an assistant and head coach in recruiting. I mean, are you the closer now that once these guys have a guy?
Well, you know, again, I don't like to use those words, closer, and because we really try to put a different spin on this recruiting thing. We're not trying to convince anybody to come here. You know, we're looking for a certain profile, and then we try to show those guys exactly what we're all about. And I always say this: we're not going to make ourselves different or better than we actually are. This is what you're going to get when you come here, and it's going to be very hard, and there's going to be a tremendous amount of work. It's hard. It'll be the hardest thing they've ever done in their life, and so we want those guys knowing that. And then when we find the guy that fits that profile, you know, that's what we're trying to get done. And so I go in and just reiterate those things. I'm not trying to necessarily sell a guy or close him. I'm just continuing to preach the message that the rest of the assistants have been doing all along.
Were some of those guys wanting to come here on the line to play for Coach Kugler, and has that affected things a little?
You know, it hasn't affected it at all. I mean, Coach Kugler, I mean, I think we all know what a fabulous person, and I think the way the offensive line performed this year speaks for itself. But all those guys also knew before he was leaving, you know, before they signed that he was leaving. And so there wasn't a guy that changed their mind. I mean, it's first and foremost about Boise State, and they also know we're going to get a very good guy, high-quality guy back in here. So, you know, you never like to lose any of your good guys, which all these guys are. That's always a hard thing. But they were all good with it. They understood.
Did you put the push on Kugler trying to get him to stay, or
No.
was it just a good deal that you knew he needed to go to?
When he explained the situation to me, I stood up and shook his hand and said, I hope I can come to a game in Buffalo sometime. There's no question. My job around here is to help these assistant coaches do their job and reach the goals that they've set for themselves. And if there's a better situation out there for their family, I'm going to help them do that. And it was real apparent talking to Sean that was a slam dunk for him to go do that.
Coach, what conferences were you butting heads with on most of your kids?
We were always interesting. That's always an interesting proposition for us because we don't ever go against one school or one conference. I know in the Pac-10, when I was in the Pac-10, we were all recruiting the same guys, and that's never been the case here, and it kind of continued this way. I know everybody loves the question about who'd you beat for this guy, and some of the people we beat nobody because we got them committed to us earlier. But there's a couple kids on there that is very impressive of the guys that we legitimately, we're trying to get these guys, and weren't able to do it.
You mentioned being 90% or so. How does that compare to your success rate in the past at getting the guys that you targeted?
We've always been pretty good. I think we've been very smart on the type of guy we're looking for, choosing our recruiting battles wisely. So we've always been good. But there's no question it was by far as efficient a process as we've had since I've been here. Yeah.
To the point where you're having to, I mean, just turn away just hundreds of kids, you know, because they're just not.
Yeah, it wasn't quite that easy.
They don't want to come here, but.
Yeah, no.